Okay, folks, it's another video. This is Glenn Greenwald. It's the so-called leftist journalist. We used to be a leftist journalist, but he's more. I don't know, they say he's a right-winger. They say he's a fascist, some call him. Vosh calls him a fascist. But he doesn't sound too bad. The main thing with him is he's kind of, I don't know. One time I called him a Russian op. Well, I didn't call him that. What's his name called him? Russian op. Morning Joe. Morning Joe called him a Russian op. He's so pro-Russian about the war. You know what Biden should have. Doesn't want a peace deal, but there's no good guys in Russia and America. There's no good guys here, folks. So he's called a Russian op. He's called a right winger. He's been on the right wing media a lot. But I think he's still is foreign. I think his thing on foreign policy is pretty. Besides that, I guess it's okay, but they're here. They talk about the culture war with Nick Cruz, Revolutionary Blackout, and they talk about leftist shows. And fair enough, they mentioned Turks again, young Turks. And he was kind of he's kind of defending the young Turks, Glenn Greenwald at first. And I said to myself, well, I was interested. I mean, he's being fair to them. But at the end, he said something about Anna Kasparian. That's really. Or it wasn't him, was Nick. It was the other guy. Nick was saying about her. Well, first he said he didn't want to mention names, but then he did mention name at the end. So, anyways, this video was like exploring the culture war on the left. And it was from a kind of a so-called left-wing guy, Glenn Greenwald. But I don't know. He's still, I guess he might be still on the left, but definitely. He's more in the middle or slightly right wing. Actually, he's gone more of the right wing, onto the right. But left shows have this. He's still on the left show, so. But he still does some talking points, left wing talking points. So I guess he's good to have on. But yeah, he's not like Jimmy Dore. He's totally on the right now. Let's see what they say.
Culture war issues when it comes to left liberal discourse. I have spent my career talking about a kind of set of issues that is about things like the evils of the U.S. security state, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, spying, privacy, free speech, corporatism, the capture of government and regulatory processes by large corporations. Those are the issues on which I have focused most. I've never thought that meant that those were the only issues that matter. I know.
Remember, he used to be with The Intercept. And when he was with The Intercept, he did great reporting. Nowadays, I don't know. But let's continue.
So there are issues on which I don't focus, including, say, healthcare policy, which I don't focus on because I don't know very much about it. I don't have, an expert level understanding to offer. But certainly those issues have always been very important to left liberal politics. I mean, all those years when I was focused on them, I was considered as part of the left, as being on the left precisely because those issues have been so important. If you go and watch or listen to kind of the leading independent left liberal media outlets, I'm not talking about Revolutionary Blackout Network, which is the real left. I'm talking about the part of the left that identifies the left, but still kind of the AOC Bernie left, all the things.
I guess they're the real left. RBN. The station's RBN. Yes, well, he sounds like a leftist guy, Nick. Yeah, I mean, there's another station that I'm not dissident, the dissident something. The other channel, another channel, but they're more like liberals. They're more like just I don't know, center right liberals, kind of. He's more like more left. This guy here.
That you just described about them. It is really almost culture war issues and trans issues and those sorts of.
The two dissidents. That's what it is. They're more like they're liberals, but they don't go into the culture wars either. So, dude, yeah, I mean,
things to the exclusion of almost everything else. There's currently this kind of cancellation campaign underway aimed at the Young Turks, and in particular, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, the two hosts. Because largely, there's some, they started in
Cenk Uygur.
some way because they started talking in kind of a right-wing way about crime and homelessness, because sort of the standard, oh, a conservative is a liberal who got mugged, you know, they were, I guess Anna was walking in the street and started getting bothered by homeless people. And
some say she was attacked, I heard. Well, Voss said she was attacked by a homeless man or assaulted, but is that true or not? That's what Voss said, anyways. And there is a right-wing view. And that's the terrible view to have against the homeless, right? That should have been, she should have been like reprimanded for that by the left. But he's right, she wasn't.
Started ranting and raving about crime, and they endorsed Rick Caruso. But really, the true precipitating event.
And there's a billionaire. He ran for the mayor of LA. Well, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he ran for LA. He was a millionaire. I guess he could be a billionaire, I'm not sure. But he lost anyways.
Was Anna Kasparian's heresy on not trans issues in general, where I would say she supports the kind of general trans agenda, legal rights and the like for trans people, 95%, probably more than most Americans do. But, you know, some of these kind of turf talking points about language that gets used for female reproductive parts that she's offended by and things of that nature, the sports issue. And what really amazes me is, you know, for me...
Thing is, she put her mouth in it. She got really triggered by that. She should have just ignored that. And some of the activists got on her, and she should have just ignored the whole thing. So it was actually her fault. And the sports issue is not a big, and they made a big thing about that, trans women in the sports. And that's not a big, no one's thinking about that. Except for the right wing, far right, not the mainstream Americans are not thinking about that. Working middle class people, it's not an issue. So they put their mouth in it, put their foot in their mouth. So they got what they deserve, the Turks.
The Young Turks has for years taken all kinds of positions that should be totally anathema to left liberal politics. I mean, Anna Kasparian, in what looked like a paid interview for NATO, interviewed Madeleine Albright, one of the worst warmongers in the world, and he praised on her for like an hour straight. Nobody cared. No one resigned from the Young Turks over it.
Gee, I never know this one. Wow.
Because these issues of like imperialism and militarism and corporatism almost have no weight at all in a lot of left-wing discourse now. In fact, if you talk about those things, they almost code as being on the right. And I'm just wondering what you make of that. A, if you agree with that analysis, the culture wars kind of...
Yeah, you're wrong. It depends on how you're talking about it. That's the problem. If you take one side, Like both sides are bad. U.S. and America, they're both terrible. They're both imperial powers. If you take the one side, the Russia side, like you do, Mr. Glenn Greenwald, and that's why they don't get into it. If you take one side, then you're not really being fair. You're not really for you're shooting for one side. You're not really for getting rid of the imperialism. You're just siding with one side. I mean, you're shooting for somebody, even for the Democrats and the Biden or the Russians. You're shooting for somebody. And you shooting for the Russians, they say.
Kind of drowning out these other issues, I think in part because it's just so much easier and lower hanging fruit to take on. But also, if you do agree with it, what do you make of it? Why is that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna avoid mentioning names here, but there's so many people on the fake left that they take their cues of leftism based on the Democratic Party,
Exactly.
whether they will acknowledge that or not. And so their biggest issues are whatever Nancy Pelosi is tweeting about. And then they would take a further left position for that. Nancy Pelosi she would tweet about the importance of the Supreme Court, and they would say we shouldn't be expanding the Supreme Court, or they would talk about abortion rights because Democrats tweet these things out. And obviously the trans issue is another one. And that's how they define their leftism. And they play a game with the right. And this is where the red-blue game is fraudulent in a lot of ways, where they push out the culture war, and both the left and the right are both massively guilty of this, because I do not think it's a coincidence in an era where Americans are more class conscious than ever, where Americans are ready for a third party, where Americans want health care, where they want actually living wage, when they want actually economic reforms, then now they now
and an end to endless war, as well.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, and there was in our generation, because I grew up during the Iraq War, and that's why I focus on foreign policy first and foremost on RBN. We get radicalized an entire generation, so to distract people from war, which the Democratic Party escalating on, and to distract from the homeless issue they're complicit with the growing police state that we're being surrounded by. They have to.
See, I agree with you, brother. I agree with you. I think this guy is a true leftist. He has some issues, but he doesn't go. He doesn't. But he said he doesn't go with the red-blue. He doesn't play the red-blue game. So you gotta respect him. There's the homeless issues, and the working class, and the poor, and the unions. Seems like he supports. You know what I mean? But those are traditional issues for the left. Instead of all this culture war. And the abortion issue too is another thing. That's another thing too, the abortion. He didn't mention abortion. Greenwald.
To push culture war issues. And I think there is legitimate concerns if you're from the trans community or from any community to fight for your rights. That's a legitimate struggle. My question is, why is there a random white guy in Kentucky where there's like 3 trans people within a 500-mile radius who's tweeting about this issue every single day? And it's because he's being programmed.
I agree. Good point.
By the media, the right-wing media, and the left-wing media that's more than happy to do the dance with them. See, now at Revolutionary Blackout, we define the traditional left values of challenging and implementing reforms on the government and actual social revolutionary reform as leftism, challenging empire as leftism, addressing material reality as leftism, which is why the fact that anyone gave TYT credibility before was absurd. When you look at anti-conspiracy, insane anti-homeless takes, when you look at the fact that they pretty much support the Democratic Party push for every single war, and there's many other left bourgeoisie commentators like Sam Cedar who famously said in a debate with Jackson Hinkle that he don't care about how much the police is funded for. Like, wow. So these.
Wow. Yeah, I was surprised. I never know that. I like Sam Cedar. I subscribe to him. But if he thinks that way about the police, Anna Kasper, she's right. He's right. He's kind of a war. I think she has a war on the poor. and the police, and she's supposed to, she does propaganda. He's definitely right.
Actual real issues on the role of state and government power in the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex, it pales in comparison of whenever Anna Conspirian says something that's right in the middle of the road where I'm from in Missouri, Glenn. And now this is a question I propose for these leftists like that are freaking out over TYT, Anna Conspirian, and the ilk. They realize that if you go to Brazil, there are many black evangelical socialists and communists who support Lula, who are very economically left. Many of them are socialists and communists, and they are evangelical. And they do not have the standard position of the...
He's right. They're liberal Christians. They're actually liberal, the leftist Christians. The thing is, here, you don't, in America, in North America, this, I guess everyone, if you're a Christian, you have to be like a really on the right to be a Christian, a real Christian. That's the problem. I think that's because of the fall of the religious right, and people bought into that. You have to be a Christian, real Christian. Well, they're not really a Christian. They take you. If you go against them, that you're. See, if you go against the alphabet community, and if you're a Christian, you leftist Christian, you're not really. Then you're actually, you don't. They call you Christian. They call you a fundamentalist right-wing Christian. They call you a right-wing. You still say that you're on the right. You're not really a leftist. You're a right-winger. You're a fundamentalist Christian, even though you're a leftist. And you bought into the media and the Christian right. And people on the left bought into that. You can't be a leftist Christian. See? Then you're really a Christian. You're not for the marginalized communities. You're not for the gay community. You know what I mean? You're not really for them. They don't agree with them, but they don't agree with their values, their lifestyle, but they have a right to exist. They agree with that, civil rights. That's the thing. That's the main thing. I'm a Christian. I agree with they should have the civil rights. Those communities. Right.
Liberals regarding gay rights and the such, and abortion and the such. So who are you guys actually fighting for? Are we not fighting for these people? There are very good people I know in the Midwest that may have ignorant takes. So are they being canceled? Are we fighting for Medicare for all, or Medicare for only the people with good takes on the trans issue? Now, I think we should take any time,
like I was saying,
movement building to educate people, and that's what I do. I stand in solidarity with my trans and gay brothers. I know a lot of them. I got a lot of great friends, so I stand in solidarity. I try to educate.
See, he's for he's not against the community. I don't know if he's a Christian though, but yeah.
People away from bigoted views, but you do that while building a movement to address people material needs, because that bond is how you break those ignorant cycles. But Glenn, what do? They cancel. They shut down discourse. They don't want debate. They don't want people to get together and learn from each other, even correcting each other and organizing against the establishment. So people like TYT and many other liberals who's going after them right now, their job is to pick the culture war and divide the worker, just like the establishment won. Just in a nutshell.
You know, I think the last point is such an important one. I mean, I do want to say, like, I also think there is a commercial motive to it, which is, I can tell you for sure, you know, I almost never cover transitions on the show. Again, it's not because I don't think they're important. I think for a lot of people, they're important in ways that you alluded to. But I'm just telling you, you know, if I did it once or twice a night, it's the easiest content in the world to do. You know, you just kind of connect to some, like, controversy about like some athlete or someone using the bathroom or some like male prisoner and a female who got put into a female facility or whatever. People get really riled up by it. You don't have to do much preparation. It doesn't take much research. The view count goes up. I think it's one of the reasons, but I also think the main reason is that it's one of the very few places where the Republican Party and the Democratic Party actually have a difference. I think that's why these kind of right-wing polemicists who are obsessed with anti-trans rhetoric are kind of in a codependent relationship with the people who are on the left wing who are just as obsessed with it. They kind of need each other because it is an easy way out to avoid talking about Ukraine or militarism or the control of the internet by the CIA and the FBI and this court ruling that just happened, the persecution of anti-establishment voices on both the left and the right, including that case of the black radicals who are now prosecuted by the Biden DOJ as Russian agents, which almost nobody in the left liberal media.
I never heard about this. I don't know. I'd like to hear about this. I never heard about this one. Is this true or not? Or is this made up story? Yeah, but it's possible they could be Russian agents. I don't know. Some say you're a Russian op, Mr. Greenwald. So, I don't know. And Jill Stein. But Jill Stein might be. Because she's with a dinner with Putin. So, I don't know. And I have a video. Saw her in a video. She's kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of my gut feeling. I'm suspicious of her. She looked too actually kind of a stick she has. Because it feels like. Or a talking point she does. Doesn't like, not authentic. You can tell.
Even bother to cover, let alone denounce, is kind of like an easy way out. I think you're exactly right as well. You know, the reason why the gay and lesbian movement ultimately ended up successful is not because activists in the movement went around demanding that everybody who uttered a heretical view got fired or banned or ignored or whatever. There were a lot of people who were potential allies of the left, including a lot of African Americans who were very religious, who were taught that gay and lesbian relationships are sinful, and the ability to engage with people and to engage in dialogue with them and to work with them ultimately is what convinced people that a lot of these demonization images that they had been given about gay men and lesbians were wrong. It was through engagement and interaction and like a respectful, engaged dialogue. And ultimately, it was really about nothing other than, as you say, kind of just interacting with people in a normal, healthy way without bashing them over the head or telling them they were irredeemably evil people. And this seems to be exactly the antithesis of what a lot of left-wing politics is about. And I think in a lot of ways it's because it's the easy way out. If you get to denounce people, if you get to call people evil, you get to sit back and say, God, I've done my job. I'm a really good person. And that is politics to them.
When you need a mortgage, you have a big choice to make. You could choose to call the bank.
Yeah, that's how they convince themselves they're good people, even though they may have gotten their wealth through ill-gotten means. How many videos have we seen from Raytheon talking about their diversity? Right, Wall Street, who plundered and destroyed black wealth, talking about how they got diversity programs to get black women positioned in high positions of power.
Remember the CIA ad about the woman who was like with various forms of mental health pathologies and, you know, a first generation non-binary immigrant, and this is the CIA touting this.
Yeah, and they replaced actual liberation of the working class and improving material needs for these suburban bourgeoisie issues, to be frank, and that's how they sleep.
That's great. The liberal elites. That's what you mean by bourgeoisie.
Well, not even though they support blue dog Democrats, even though they vote for Joe Biden, who is escalating World War III. That's how they sleep at night. Now, I want to go back kind of to the social war issues as well, because I feel like there are a lot of people who are are taught to skip steps, and maybe that benefit the Democratic Party. Maybe you can make the argument, but a lot of them have adopted this authoritarian mindset that is not helpful. Even if I agree with you guys on the premise of the social issues, having this authoritarian mindset where we're not going to have a community build where we educating people the way every single social movement ever works. Instead, you guys said we're going to rely on the government stranglehold over Twitter and social media to censor people, cut people off for community, and ban people for organizing together. The best way to have a real empathy-based working class is have one that's one to have conversation and grow from each other, and that comes from us acknowledging each other's material needs, and that is not what the liberal bourgeoisie class that support Joe Biden has in common with us. So what do, Glenn? They peddle in nonstop culture war nonsense. Anna Kasparian, for example, since we mentioned her before, is a multi-millionaire who never worked a real honest day in her life. So what does she have to connect herself to the worker that makes it like they're on the side? It's just nonstop red blue culture war nonsense, and that's what it is.
Wow. Okay, folks. She Anna Kasparian again, that's the thing. At the end, he get a big knock against Anna Kasparian. Oh, she's a multi-millionaire. Bourgeois. I think he's right. Because she gets spooked by the homeless people. All of a sudden she's some say, well, Vash, I don't know. She was attacked or something. But she was spooked or had an encounter with a homeless person, and she's against homeless and she's for crime. She's for the for tough on crime thing. Tough on crime theme. But yeah. Well, that's it, folks. That's what these guys, Greenwald and Nick, take on the culture war of the left. That's it for this video.